Then you heard nothing about missile.
Despite the witness testimony, the FBI favored a bomb. Prime evidence found the device exploded in cabin of Flight 800, read a New York Times headline a month after the crash. The FBI lab had found traces of PETN, an explosive common to both missiles and bombs. But the FBI did not seem eager to learn more. Said the IAMAW, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers, we feel that our expertise was unwelcome and not wanted by the FBI. The threats made during the first 2 weeks of the investigation were unwarranted and unforgettable. Was the FBI sincere about a bomb? An encounter with the FBI agent in charge led one family member to think otherwise.
And before everyone sat down at this corner conference table, Serge Kovaleski said, well, can't tell me it was anything other than a missile. And Jim Kallstrom said, you're right, but if you quote me, I'll deny it.
Right from the start, the NTSB argued for mechanical failure.
All of a sudden, you're hearing, it's TWA's fault, it's a mechanical. And we're thinking, well, how do they even know that? They don't have any, at that time, they didn't even have the mock-up put together, nothing. They had nothing. And all of a sudden, they're hearing mechanical, mechanical, mechanical.
Within months, the NTSB went on record favoring an explosion of fuel vapor in the center wing tank. The public debate now is between bomb and mechanical. This false dialectic troubled many inside the investigation. One of them, 747 manager Terry Stacy, shared his concerns with Jim Sanders.
Terry Stacy was identified as the one person not to bother even talking to about trying to get information on that. He was such a straight arrow, go by the rules kind of guy. That's exactly the kind of person I wanted. And here I was face to face with him. And what he told me over those hours was that, one, and it was the first thing out of his mouth, he says, I know there's a cover-up in progress.
We are certainly fortunate to live in a country where we have a free media and a free press.
The question is often asked, why doesn't anyone come forward with the truth? The answer is they try to. It's just that no one wants to hear it, not even the major media.
I'm treated as an oddball. I'm treated as a freak. I'm treated as someone who's overcome with grief, doesn't know what she's doing, trying to blame anyone except a mechanical.
To suppress dissent, the administration used not only the media, but the courts.
Terry Stacy began to feed me a series of documents that I analyzed. It had to do with the debris field. What falls off a plane first generally, and falls into the ocean is generally the first thing, second thing, third thing. That you can build a sequence of how the plane broke up, and it might give you an idea of what happened. Well, he gave me these documents, I analyzed them, and because I saw this trail going from right to left across that plane through the passenger cabin analysis. When I showed him this trail, he, for the first time, and this was at the end of November, it was at his house over in New Jersey, when he looked at that, he goes, my God, there's a reddish-orange residue trail right there. He said, I think it's the very same seats, row 17, 18, and 19. He says the FBI back in early September took samples and have refused to share the analysis on those samples.
Terry Stacy knew the plane well. He had flown Flight 800 from Paris to New York just the day before the crash. Without prompting, he volunteered to take the next step.
When he found he couldn't scrape the residue off, he, as he testified in court, on his own volition, popped 2 small samples off, put them in a plastic bag, put them in his pocket, left the hangar, went down to FedEx, overnighted them to me, and that night called me and told me they were en route.
Stacy removed 2 samples out of a possible 1,000. Sanders had 1 sample tested in a California lab. The elements identified by the lab were consistent with residue from a solid fuel missile or warhead explosion. In March of '97, a California newspaper ran a front-page story on his research. This was no longer a polite debate about theories. A retired cop-turned-investigative reporter had uncovered hard evidence of a likely cover-up within the upper reaches of government. The FBI leaned on Liz Sanders and continued to harass her, even after her attorney told the Justice Department to cease and desist.
I was not about to give up a TWA employee and friend. So we both decided it's in everyone's best interest if I just disappear for a while. It was a very hard time to go through, to all of a sudden have such a full life. I enjoyed my job. I loved my job. Had a million things going on there. Was looking forward to a wonderful career with TWA. And now I had nothing.
Despite Liz's sacrifice, she would spend 8 months in an Oregon trailer park. The FBI found its way to Stacy, came down on him hard, and arrested both Jim and Liz Sanders for conspiracy.
The day I was arrested was surreal. It's like you're outside watching this happen to somebody else. It was something I never thought would ever happen to just an innocent, normal person in America.
The FBI handcuffed Liz with her hands behind her back and dragged her through throngs of reporters, and never once did any reporter ever even think about writing a story in defense of the wife of a journalist. That was the low moment. I knew that we had no support whatsoever from major media. We were not going to get our story out.
Really, my main thought when this happened was, oh my gosh, my mother's going to see this on television. And that bothered me because she was going to get so worried.
Liz's crime? She introduced Jim to Terry Stacy. She and Jim were tried as thieves in a conspiracy to steal government property, a law written to ward off scavengers. The federal jury was not allowed to know that Jim Sanders was a reporter, let alone that he was pursuing evidence of a cover-up by the same government agencies prosecuting him and his wife. The Sanders were both convicted. Before sentencing, the NTSB's Jim Hall sent a letter to the judge. He wrote, "This is not a so-called victimless crime. These defendants have traumatized the families with the release of misinformation, the only plausible cause of which is commercial gain." Left unsaid was that this avowed champion of the free press had a vested interest in shutting Sanders' investigation down. As to the cause of the fuss, the missile residue, well, it was really just glue, or so said the feds. As usual, the media never bothered to ask for proof.
We have a very specific document that proves that what Jim Kallstrom of the FBI, Dr. Merritt Berkey, and the rest that were out there saying it's nothing but glue, it's nothing but glue, and we, the government, are saying it's nothing but glue because Charlie Bassett down at NASA independently confirmed it. Well, Charlie Bassett, when he found out that's what they were saying, he very courageously signed a notarized statement. And I'm paraphrasing what he said because it's 2 pages. I didn't test anything having to do with Sanders' residue being glue. In essence, he's saying they're lying.
The eyewitnesses continued to plead their case. To make the no physical evidence mantra stick, they had to be silenced. Enter the CIA. During a November 1997 press conference, the FBI shared the CIA's analysis with the world.
Using these eyewitness reports and radar tracking data, CIA analysts were able to reconstruct the approximate path of Flight 800 from the instant its recordings ended until it struck the water. The following sequence of events is based on that analysis. Just after the aircraft exploded, it pitched up abruptly and climbed several thousand feet from its last recorded altitude of about 13,800 feet to a maximum altitude of about 17,000 feet. This is consistent with information provided by NTSB investigators and Boeing engineers, who determined that
This explanation stunned the aviation world.